So then, I finally got my hands on the Mars 4 DLP, one of the many Mars 4s that are coming out. We've got the Mars 4 DLP, the Mars 4 Max, which are kind of out now, maybe, and then we've also got the new Mars 4 itself, and then the Mars 4 Ultra, which are both 9K printers. And despite those latter two having a huge fanfare when Elegoo announced 6 new printers coming in 2023, the Mars 4 DLP's release was a little bit lackluster. In fact, the only place I know that covered it initially was some YouTube channel online that got a really early copy of one, and then me, who wrote about it and did a video. And then I think 3D Jake's done one as well to sell their printers. But anyway, now we've got hands-on, and I want to tell you all about the Mars 4 DLP and what it means to you so it can help you decide whether or not to buy one. So hi, I'm Ross, and this is Fohammer Videos. So I've been waiting, like everyone, a couple of months to get more info about this printer, and I was speaking to Elegoo about getting my hands on one, and I was on the list of people meant to get one, but I found that they were available to order on Amazon and get it delivered next day. So in the end, in order to do this video, I just went out and bought one. So what is it? It's kind of an entry-level printer. I mean, in terms of build volume anyway, it's 132.8 by 74.7 by 150 millimeters. It's slightly wider and slightly deeper on the build area than the Photon D2, but it's not quite as tall. It actually loses 2.5 centimeters in height compared to Photon's DLP printer. But to be fair, when you've got a build plate this tiny, does that 2.5 centimeters even matter? It hasn't to me. Now, when it comes to screen resolution, this is where things start getting a little bit weird, because this is DLP. And I'll be saying, but it's DLP quite a lot throughout this video, because we need to justify everything. It's different to what LCD is in many ways. So, the resolution is 2560 by 1440. Yes, that's 2K, and I know what you're thinking, you can get 4K, 8K, and even 12K printers now. But it's DLP. Now back to a bit of comparison, because that 2560 by 1440 is exactly the same as what's in the Photon D2, exactly the same, including the way they generate that resolution from the projector chip. So if you're new here, the first thing you need to know about DLP is there's no screen like you would typically get in a masked SLA printer. You just get a projector which bounces light off a mirror and then goes up through a glass pane. It essentially does the same thing, but it's just without an LCD, it has a projector in. Now, I've said many times, when you look at a printer's resolution, don't look at 2K, 4K, 8K, etc. Look at the screen size and then look at 2K, 4K and what the resolution is, so that you can work out what the pixel size is. Because an 8K screen that's really small is going to be much, much better than a 12K screen that's really big. So again, watch my other videos for a better explanation. So anyway, when compared to the D2, they are very similar. Well, they're the same in resolution and they're very similar in size. The D2 is a 5.9 inch screen, or at least print area, let's not say screen, and this one is a 6-inch print area, and therefore it has 51 micron pixels. But so does the D2. There's just not that much of a difference in the 0.1 of an inch screen size to make the pixel size significantly different from each other. But yes, technically there's a microcosm where, because this is an ever so slightly larger screen, it's ever so slightly less detailed, because the pixels are ever so slightly bigger. I don't know how much. The calculator I looked at online just doesn't break it down that slow. And when I said earlier, I'll say, but it's DLP. Look, I'm going to try and make this simple. I've covered it in other videos about the Photon Ultra, the Photon D2, and comparing the D2 to the Frozen Sonic Mini 8K. Go and watch those videos for more details, but there are some benefits with DLP that you need to be aware of. So first of all, it lasts longer. Yeah, a lot longer. LCDs are rated for normally around 2,000 hours, whereas these projectors can last for anything up to 20,000 hours. And this is only when it's on, only projection time. So don't think like you've only got 2,000 hours worth of printing. You actually need to determine how long your LCD screen is on for in a print. And let's say you're doing a print that's 5,000 layers and it's on for 1.5 seconds per layer, then it's only on for 7,500 seconds, which is I think about 40 minutes for that entire print. So you do still get a good lifespan out of LCD printers. The point of DLP is you'll probably never have to replace it unless it's on forever for the best part of half a decade. But they're also incredibly low power and they're quieter. In fact, if this has got a fan in it, I never heard it. I can't actually see a vent on it anywhere, so I don't think there are, and when it's printing, you can't hear anything blowing. All you can hear is this soothing rhythmic whir of the build plate lifting up and down as the motor spins. And the printer itself, well, it looks kinda cool. It's your typical Saturn style box, but this time they've put some decals on the front that's kind of their unique styling to their product range going forward. Doesn't really do anything, it just kinda gives the printer a bit more of a techie vibe. Cool. It's got a nice chassis. I mean, the base of it's almost like corrugated, like a corrugated metal style in a way, but it's not metal, it's plastic. It's just got some bumps on it again to just give it a little more appealing style. But it does come with Elegoo's signature carbon filters, which you seem to now get in every single printer they do, and this isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's pretty darn good. It means you can print and you don't get any of the nasty smells, so that's a good thing. Happy with that. The printer's Z-rod it's quite slim and it's not secured at the top, so yes, there could be problems later on with some Z-wobble. I've had no issues really with my prints, apart from a badly supported model that teared halfway through, but again, other than that, you get that with any printer. And as for the other features, well, it's got a single linear rail, that's to keep the costs down it seems, but the whole thing is surrounded by a sturdy and strong C-frame at the back, which seems to be what most of the lower budget printers are going for nowadays. And I know, look, if you've watched my videos, yes, I've been the guy touting DLP. DLP is the future, and to a degree I still believe that, because there are other benefits to DLP when it comes to actually printing. Now, when I got this out of the box, I wanted to test something I've mentioned for a while, and that is printing with a DLP printer and showing that DLPs have a wider range for successful exposure settings. So using the Tango slicer, which is really good, it's included with this, and normally you have to pay for that slicer, but if you enter the hardware code from the printer, it'll actually activate the program. I don't know if this is eternally or just a year's license. I didn't read the documentation, so check the website for details. But yeah, you get the Tango slicer. It's not my favorite slicer, it's okay. The UI to move things around the build plate is a bit awkward and cumbersome, but apparently it's the supporting and the workflow that's really good. So I look forward to spending more time with this, probably on different printers though. So I sliced up the exposure test finder, and I've talked about why I use this one in my how to print miniatures video. So if you want any help on getting any printer set up, go and watch that video. And printing this at 1.5 second layers for 0.03mm layers, yep, it was fine. I got 13 posts, 13 holes. That tells me that the exposure's absolutely fine. Now, what I next did was go and print this at 3 seconds for the same layer height, and it wasn't very overexposed. And the reason it wasn't very overexposed is because you don't get as much light bleed as you do with LCD printers. So where DLPs are really good is if you are using softer or some of the clear resins, they can take higher times in order to cure the layers, but with this you've got a much wider range. So with typical LCD printers you want to nail it down to tenths of a second, whereas with this you probably want to nail it down to, I think it's 50th of a second. Anyway, the difference between 1.5 and 2 seconds isn't anywhere near as big as the difference on an LCD printer between 1.5 and 1.6. Hope that makes sense. And then you've got the benefits such as, again, it doesn't have an LCD. Normally you've got an LCD, you're best off putting a screen protector down, which I think can potentially refract light and soften prints even more. But with this, it's just a sheet of glass. So if you accidentally get resin on there or puncture the FEP and cure that resin to the glass, you just get a nice sharp blade and scrape it off and give it a wipe. On an LCD printer, you're possibly looking at replacing the screen. Now, when it comes to the print quality on this, you've probably noticed I've printed 2 of a lot of these models, and the reason for this is because I've printed them very specifically and very intentionally with anti-aliasing off and anti-aliasing on. I've just turned it on at the lowest setting and also enabled 2x image blur as well. And when you look at these models close up without anti-aliasing, you can see they look blocky and horrible and terrible. They look like sharper versions of what old mono 2K printers would look like. We've come a long way from this. So again, why would you want it? Well, when you enable anti-aliasing and image blur and look at the same models, you can see that all of those sharp edges are significantly softened, but it still retained a lot of the detail. And this is where DLP shines. Yes, it's only 2K, but it's 2K, but it's sharp. And when you soften it with anti-aliasing, it's soft, but it's sharp. If you look at models which have got typically straight edges, sometimes you can get those rounded off on an LCD printer, whereas on here, if it's a straight edge, it's a straight edge. Again, check my video of the D2 versus Sonic Mini 8K for more details on this. I don't want to go through it again, it's wasting your time for things I've already covered. So, is this printer right for you? Honestly, and that deep breath is intentional, I don't know. Yes, I want to sing the praises of DLP printers. I do think DLP is the future, and I can't even explain it, but I just have fewer printing issues on DLP. It might be because of the light intensity in some way. I've got no way of measuring it, but whenever I print with a DLP printer, it's just so much of an easier experience when compared to an equivalently sized LCD. But unless you've got a specific, and I mean very specific use case that you're okay with the few jaggies, and you want specifically small prints because the build plate is small, I'm scratching my head at the value proposition of this at the moment. Like, for less money, for a lot less money, you can get something like the Saturn 8K. I mean, you can get the Saturn 2 for less money than this is. And I haven't seen the prices on the Saturn 3 yet, but I've got a suspicion they're going to be lower than this as well. Because when I'm looking at the current generation of printers which have got 28.5 micron screens, or even these upcoming 12Ks with their 19 or so micron screens, I'm thinking, in what world would I want this minuscule quality difference that I don't even think is going to be determinable by anyone unless you're looking under a macro lens? Why would I want that over the convenience of a much larger build plate and build height? So do me a favour, if you know why you would want this over them, pop it down in the comments, but otherwise, I've just spent £500 on this printer to try and sell more different printers. So I at least hope you appreciate my honesty and will drop me one of those subscribe things and maybe leave a comment down below and a like, just so I feel like I've got some value for spending some money on this printer. Yeah, it's a good printer, it works well, for this price, I just feel limited by it. And yeah, DLP's great and I hope it's the future because it's so much easier, but I just can't see that the value proposition is there. Am I wrong? Let me know if you think so, please. I'm asking you to. I want to give a huge thanks to you for watching and a bigger thanks to our patrons who are helping us make this content. And if you want to keep getting informed on printers and us trying to help you decide which one is the best one to buy of the next or even the current generation, if you want dedicated help, then come and give me a shout on patreon.com and I will help you get your printer working and point you in the right direction to get the best out of it. That's all from me. I hope this was helpful. Until next time, see you later. Fohammer out.